Welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. Here we'll talk to the leaders in technology, culture, business, and the arts. We'll cover politics, advocacy, motherhood, writing, mental health, and mostly we'll focus on hope. Join Kim B. Davis, author, playwright, radio personality, event consultant, professional speaker on the Kim B. Davis Show.
Good evening and welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. I'm your host, Kim B. Davis, and this evening we are saying say yes to you. And we have Tamekia Nixon, who is the Vice President of Marketing at the Detroit Regional Partnership. And she's going to talk to us about how she said yes to herself and found love. Good evening, Tamekia. How are you?
Hi, good evening, Kim. How are you? Thank you for having me. I'm
I'm
so excited to be here.
Same here. It is Women's History Month, and so we're celebrating women all throughout the month of March. And I think this is an excellent topic to talk about. So let's get right to it. It's 2021. We are
Yes,
still in a pandemic. The numbers are getting better, thankfully.
yes,
Many of us in 2020 were struggling. We were going through growth. Some
hmm
of us were looking at our situations and thinking, I got to do better than this.
yeah,
Others finally noticed some things that we hadn't been paying attention to. And so,
sure.
relationships, parenthood, friendships, business relationships, all those types of things have come under close scrutiny. But you and I had a conversation a while back, and we
hmm
were talking about how you said yes to
hmm
yourself when you got out of your own way and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
world of possibilities opened up to you. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I'll start off by saying I kind of coined the phrase when it's just you, God, and the pillow. So I'll say that again, just you, God, and the pillow. And that's where, really at nighttime when you're not around the social media and when you're not around your friends and your lashes are not on fleek and it's just again just the transparency of you, God, and the pillow, then I think that's where it's the perfect opportunity to get undressed, if you will, with yourself and really looking at, okay, what's the real issue here? This is where you cannot be fake in front of yourself. You cannot be fake in front of God, and you can't be fake in front of the pillow, right? Because a pillow represents a place of rest, if you will. So it's really an opportunity just to kind of unveil and unpack, if you will, what are the real issues. And I think that we have to be honest with ourselves. And that's the first thing, unpacking, um, and just being able to be real, to be transparent. If you want to see any change or impact in your life, if you want your life just to be like, okay, 2017, that didn't happen, 2018, that didn't happen, but it really comes from a place of honesty and truth with yourself. And really, if you can't be transparent with yourself, in the natural, right, Kim? We're all wearing these masks, right?
Right?
Some of us wearing two masks, some of us wearing two masks and a shield. So at some point in life, I don't want to call it normal, but we will walk into a new normal where we may not have to wear this mask. But how many of us will still have on a mask, that mask in the mirror and the mask that we mask about what the issues are, what our fears are, and letting that hinder us from life? I mean, one thing that 2020 taught us is that, hey, play if you want to, but these days will continue to go on, and people, over a half a million people have left this planet.
Hmm.
Okay, and they're not coming. I haven't seen anybody return back.
Right.
Okay, and so really it comes down to your day to day and what's really important. Um, one thing that I say with the playing field is level is with time. So in terms of, it doesn't matter if I got $500 million, $100,000, $500, $50, or 5 cents. We all got 24 hours in a day, and it's what are you going to do with that? And how are you going to be intentional about that time to create the life that you can have and that you are warranted and that you are so deserving of? I would also like to add too, it ain't just for the movies. It's for, the whole mantra of art imitating life that comes from somewhere. So being able to say, hey, that can happen for me. I'm worthy of this. And being able to step into it and being able to take those steps day by day. And it's really, it's a daily thing. It's an hourly thing. Like, what are you going to sacrifice for that to happen?
So talk to us about some steps because you just said daily basis. So
Mm-hmm.
this is work. This isn't
Mm-hmm.
easy. So talk to us about some steps that we can incorporate into our lives to make this a reality.
Well, I think the first thing is, how do you spend your time waking up? Those early morning hours, it really sets the tone for the day. So you got a choice. Again, we all got 24 hours. Do you want to pick up your phone, flipping through other people's timeline, watching their manifestations and their dreams happen? And that's cool to support other people. Um, or do you want to work on your dreams? That whole hour, 2 hours, if you look up, what type of time are you going to be intentional? Are you going to be intentional to start that before your work day? So, for example, say you start the clock at 9 virtually. Are you going to say, okay, from 7 to 8:30, this is the time that I'm allocating 3 days a week or every Wednesday? Start where you're at. That's the
Mhm.
first thing. I think the second thing too, we believe our voice more than anyone else's. So what are you saying to yourself and what are you listening to? I mean, I think that we have to put boundaries in place. We can't listen to everything. I noticed too in 2020 with all of the civil unrest. And I love my people dearly and a huge fighter, if you will. But I noticed that after a while, even though I'm very much aware of it, I mean, I'm a Black woman in America, so how could I not be? I'm married to a Black man, too. I got Black brothers and everything, uncles, cousins, um, that I had to kind of censor what was coming into my eye gate and ear gate with the information overload. So I rechanneled that and I began to purchase more books, kind of getting back to my first love. And a lot of the books have to do with racism and having to have those difficult conversations. But I felt for me, for this juncture in my life, that was the best way for me to repurpose that energy so that I can have meaningful conversations, or even in my workplace, how I can have dialogue across other decision makers here in the Detroit region. And a lot of that is gaining that knowledge from book and just being able to be intentional on the delivery. I think also too, having a faith life, having a relationship with God. We can't do it all by ourselves. This whole notion of this superwoman, lay down the cape, lay the cape down, and it's okay. Cape has had its decades, and we need to pick up something else, right? Something much lighter. Um, we don't have to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. And I think too, to dream again and to write it down. The Bible tells us to write the vision down, make it plain so that you can run with it. I'm looking at you with all of your books in the background. And I mean, how many books do you have now, Kim?
6.
6. Okay, I was going to say 7. You must be birthing one now.
I am.
Yeah, but it took a step, intentional, whether, and I know you have a full family, a husband and 2 boys, but being intentional about the time that you're going to dedicate to that. See, here's the deal with successful people. They're no different. I consider myself a successful person too. But what is it? They are very, very strategic. They are very, very intentional. And success leaves clues. So even if I can't get close to a John Maxwell, guess what? I'm going to be reading his book. Not only am I going to be reading this book, I'm going to be highlighting it, yellowing it. You know what I mean? YouTube and like, what am I fueling myself with? And so that I can become in alignment with that messaging. It's like, what are you pouring into yourself?
Those are great points. Morning routines are really, really important. And all of my friends, because I struggle with mine, But all of my friends who have solid routines, including yourself, I know that you guys do very similar things. You get up, you study the word of God, you have your own quiet meditative time, you
Mm-hmm.
list out what you want to have
Yeah,
achieved during the day, and then you go forth and do that. I want to go back to two things that you said. One, you
sure.
talked about you, God, and the pillow.
Mm-hmm.
And is there a moment where you felt like, okay, God, what am I doing wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there something wrong with me? Or, were you angry? Were you sad? Can you talk a little bit about what led to that moment?
So I can back up a little bit, if you will. So, um, you know, s- I'll talk about me being married.
Mhm,
Um, Society can be mean, and even if they don't say certain things, you can feel it.
mhm,
So I've been married for 2 years now. I got married at the age of 44, and it happened when it was supposed to happen, and I'm excited. Love my husband, and we feel extremely blessed to have each other at this point of our lives. But again, by society's perspective, oh, you're 40 something, never been married, all of these negative connotations that can be thrust upon you. And I felt that, and it felt like a great sense of pressure. Like, yeah, why? How come I'm not married? I'm Tamekia. I'm professional. I look good. I'm cute. I'm nice. Just kind of looking at all of these things and just feeling this tremendous pressure as to why it hadn't happened. And this wrestling, the best way, and I'm sharing this. This is funny. I feel like it was a wrestling match, like with me and God. And it was
mhm,
wrestling, wrestling, wrestling. Um, and then I just felt like with this wrestling match, like I just got wore out. Like, okay, uncle, uncle. And once I like surrendered, if you will, and really just said, okay, what is it that I can work on? So I just became, I know people use this term, the best version of yourself, but I became a greater version because it's like I'm already great. I'm
mhm,
already the best. So I just became a greater version of myself. And like for the first time, I wasn't pressed about it. And so I just began to magnify everything. Like I made my home extra beautiful. At the time, I was like having fundraisers for elected officials, for people running for office again, just whatever I had the capacity to control, I did it. Then that's when promotion came and within my career. I got recommended to go through Leadership Detroit. Just all of these things became in alignment with me. Used to be like, oh, it's the holidays. I don't have anyone to cook for, blah. And one holiday, I just cooked a big holiday dinner for all of my family and friends and invited them over. And that's like when it manifested. Like when I wasn't pressed, I was so busy, becoming me, living my life that that's when that open door, uh, for my husband. That's when things just kind of, I don't believe anything is by happenstance or coincidence, but I believe that I was a much better Tamekia to be presented because then you don't have all of that weight on another human being, to fulfill you. Like I was already fulfilled. Obviously, that's something I wanted to happen in my life, but you know, um, I heard Denzel Washington say one time they were asking him about some Oscar. He was up for an Oscar and something I can't recall. And he said, if I win the Oscar, cool, I'm going home. If I don't win the Oscar, cool, I'm going home. And that was like my whole take. Like, of course you want to win,
mhm,
you win it anyway, but that's like the extra, if you will. Um, and so that was kind of like my attitude, and that's when things fell in place for me in that particular area of my life. And it's been it's been a tremendous blessing. But I think too, I had to take like another look at myself, and one day I just looked in the mirror, like, I really, like, I love me. Like for real, not being fake, but like, I, like, I love myself. And how many women can actually say that? Like
Mm-hmm.
just you. That's where it goes back to you, God, and the pillow. Being
Mm-hmm.
able to love who you are, and it doesn't matter if you still need to lose 20 pounds or 10 pounds or whatever things that we are so hard on ourselves about. Um, but just being cool with yourself as you are, giving yourself some grace, even though we all want to get better. But God loves you, and so why can't you love yourself enough um, at this particular stage in your life?
And that's a great segue to the next question that I wanted to ask you. You talked about math. And I know that specifically when people are depressed, and I'll use myself as an example, I have often put on the mask. People will say, "Hey, Kim, how are you?" "I'm great. How are you?"
Mhm,
And no one will know
mhm.
unless you are a really close friend that something is going on. And then when I go and I talk about it, people say, "But you don't look depressed." I said, that's the catch. No one ever really looks depressed unless you're just one of those people that's crying and you can't get off the couch or you can't get off out of the bed. And yes, there are people that experience depression that way. However, there are lots of people that have what I was diagnosed with, which is called high functioning anxiety, which can lead to depression because you're anxious, but you know how to function well enough in society and whatever it is that you do, that no one gets it until you let it go. Can you talk a little bit about where it sort of became a realization for you to take off the mask? Because you talked about standing in the mirror and loving yourself. Was there ever a point where you weren't happy with yourself, or were there things that you wanted to change?
And that was a main factor for me not being married. That was like the Achilles heel. Um, yeah, because it's something, you know, your 30s and then your early 40s, if you was like, you're looking at almost about, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're seeing everyone, and it's not at the time it feels like everyone, but it's not. But when you're looking at other people who are, and that's why it's important that we don't compare ourselves with others.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's just for transparency, and you're looking at other people and they're getting married and they're having children, and you're like, what what is going on here? Um, that I have to say is like one of the, that had been like the most major um, thing for me in terms of just overall what that looks like. I think just for all women or just for anyone, I think it's, we got to do a better job, Kim, of celebrating ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
We really do. And I think it's in terms of the everyday wins. Like I said, you got 6 books behind you. And so being able to push through, it just speaks to how resilient we are. And even if we sit down for a minute, we get back in the race. See, it's a long game, if you will. And
Mm-hmm.
so knowing that, um, the whole, your testimony, how it impacts and help other people along the way. And probably if that would not have happened, maybe we would have just seen 1 book and maybe not 6, or working on your 7th book. And maybe it fueled you to have this talk show. Maybe it fueled you to get out of your comfort zone. Um, what's the saying about diamonds? You make diamonds out of pressure, or something like that. What's the saying?
The diamonds are the strongest material on Earth, and something about the pressure, because it's the
Yeah,
diamond
pressure.
egg, right?
Mhm.
Diamonds have to be under pressure to become a real diamond, because
Yeah,
otherwise it's just a stone or something. I'll have to look that up. I forget.
yeah. So again, it goes back to the base. See, that's why we got to be hooked up with God, and that's why we have to protect what's coming in our ear gate and our eye gate. That's why we got to protect the conversations, the noise, the hater. It could be us, but
Hmm.
from within, that's why we got to shut all of that down. That's why we got to stay connected. I even believe too, um, in certain seasons, and sometimes I still do it. If I feel like, hey, it's a lot going on, it could be, um, with the pandemic, like I lost my mom during the pandemic, and uh, just feeling, what's- I don't like to say the word, but maybe it's overwhelmed for. I felt that for several weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then just listening to the word while I'm asleep. The Bible talks about your sleep being sweet. So again, just being intentional. Even if you have down something positive or inspirational throughout the day. I did it for a season. I did it like intentional. Like, nope, I can't turn on the radio. I gotta be into every time I step in the car, if I'm here working in my computer, if I'm washing the dishes, if I'm, whatever I'm doing, when I'm in the shower, when I come out, when I'm curling my hair, all of these things. Because see, that's when the noise starts to bump in when you bump in your hair. Oh, look at your skin. Oh, look at this. You ain't nothing. All of this noise that comes in. But if you have something to counter it, the Bible tells us, and I don't mean for this to be church, but the enemy comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But God comes to give us life and to give it to us more abundantly. So if you know that you got an enemy out there, it's like if you go into a war, we got to put on our armor and we got to be much stronger and be ready for it. You can't go out here with a water pistol. Okay, because if you come out here in a water pistol, what's the saying? You're going to get got. But you better come out here loaded and ready. And that comes with words that we come out of our mouth. And even if we don't know what to say what God say. I gave four of my girlfriends, I gave them an exercise, right? We have like this 4 or 5 way text message, my girlfriends from college, right? From over 20 years ago. And we've been like texting on this group text for about 5 years. We talk about everything: politics, love, children, husbands, what's happening, George Floyd, everything, work, life, being a woman, everything, right? New hairstyles, I gained 10 pounds, I lost 15, life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so one day, uh, I said, hey, let me encourage everybody to write down in a book, write down 100 things you love about yourself. And it was like crickets. And I said, do it and screenshot it. Don't just say, oh, no, screenshot it and do it. And so that's what I'm saying. We got to like to sit down and to do it. See, now you're being held accountable,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we got to hold ourselves accountable. I think we have to find safe places, safe circles, if you will. We got to, again, give each other some grace, give ourselves grace, give each other grace. Just kind of getting back to the basics right now. I think that's one thing that this pandemic has taught us is getting back to the basics and knowing what you can live with and what you can't live without. At the end of the day, like what if you got to grab 3 things, what 3 things are you going to grab? And what does that mean? Not just physical things, but what are the 3 things that you grab to carry on to live a long, strong, healthy life? I mean, like when we leave here, we should only leave fully like empty, like leave everything out here,
Mm-hmm.
so that's part of it. It's a constant, it's a day. I think that's why the Bible says, give us this day our daily bread. Like we got to do it one day at a time. Although it is, we should plan, but I think like this walk, we have to do it one day at a time. But we got to be hooked up with God, and we got to have be intentional to have people around us who can help us along in this journey. And if you can't find people right now, I understand that with it being a pandemic, we do have this thing called YouTube. And so being intentional to find whether it's a minister, motivational speakers that you stay plugged into. I wouldn't recommend a lot. Maybe it's just 2 or 3 because you don't want to hear a whole bunch of messages when you're being intentional about a very specific thing. I'm going to say it again: when you're being intentional about a very specific thing, um, then that's key. And everybody knows what that is for them. So whether it's losing, 10, 15 pounds, the other thing too, I want to just drop into the equation. Like, let's drop the weight.
Mm-hmm.
Let's drop the weight. I'm not saying You need to be a size 2, but probably most women of color, we could drop 10 pounds. We
Mhm.
could drop, I think we could be committed to dropping one dress size. I mean, I lost like 7 pounds recently, just by cutting sugar out of my diet, and drinking more water. Now I got to get back on my machine, and when I do that, it's gonna be like whoosh, even more. But um, in terms of dropping the weight, because when you drop the weight, you add more quality of life, when your clothes fit better. When you're walking past in the mirror and you see yourself, that's all I got to say. And why not do it? The other thing too, just for health benefits, but also too, when we're eating these foods that are not the best for us, is why are we really eating it? Like, why are we really going for that second piece of cake? Like, why? Why?
Mhm.
Why you feel like you got to have two pieces of bread on that sandwich? Like, why? Why you got to have all of that ketchup? Why you got to have all of that dressing on your salad? You know what I'm saying? Why can't you make a green smoothie? Why you got to have 5 pieces of bacon? Really,
Because
when we
bacon
begin
makes
to
everything
question,
better.
you know, and
Right.
maybe, it's in modification. Maybe it's once a month. On Sunday, I'm cooking this breakfast, and this is what I'm committed to. But those other 29 or 30 days, we're committed. We are intentional about this. And the reality is, just living long, strong, and healthy. They say black don't crack. Let's not crack ourselves out. Let's make sure that we can look as youthful. The Bible promises that, but there's something that we have to do on our end too. So I think the food that we eat has a great deal to do with a lot of different things in terms of our skin, our appearance, how we feel about ourselves, and what we're pouring into our bodies. I mean, the reality, you would not pour a gallon of Clorox into your vehicle, right? So
Mhm.
how much more are we important than a vehicle that's going to depreciate mile after mile?
Mhm. Mhm.
We just get better, right?
Right. Go
Yeah.
ahead. You know you was preaching there for a minute now. Come on now. But but you're absolutely right. And it's studies have found that if you eat better, you get
Mm-hmm,
exercise and move yourself, whether it's a dress
mm-hmm,
size or even 1 or 2 pounds, typically
mm-hmm,
people
mm-hmm,
do feel better. Now, sometimes
mm-hmm.
we need medication and sometimes we
Yeah.
just talk therapy, and sometimes you need something a little bit stronger than that, or you need a combination. But the thing about it
Mm-hmm,
is, you won't know that until you admit to yourself something is wrong. And
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I just finished reading A Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes.
Yes.
And I thought it was a great book. And I know I'm late because the book has been out a few years, but I just started reading it with my girlfriends. And it was a great book to me and it spoke to me. And I want to read something to you so we can discuss it. And so just bear with me. 12 years later, the memories of those nights of the sleep deprivation, and I remember what that was like having babies, still make me rock back and forth a little bit. You want to torture someone? Hand them an adorable baby they love who doesn't sleep. Badge of honor? Necessary evil? Yes. Pain in the ass? Yes. Badge of honor? Are you freaking kidding me? Who believes that crap? Who is drinking that crazy Kool Aid? But a lot of people are. Most people are. I don't think it ever occurred to me before how much and how often women are praised for displaying traits that typically render them invisible. When I really think about it,
Mm,
I realize the culprit is the language generally used to praise women, especially mothers.
mm,
She sacrificed everything for her children. She never thought of herself. She gave up everything for us. She worked tirelessly to make sure that we had what we needed. She stood in the shadows. She was the wind beneath our wings. Greeting card companies are built on that idea. Tell her how much all the little things she does all year long that seem to go unnoticed really mean to you with a $2.59 card. Mother's Day is built on that idea. This is good. We're sold. It's good how mom diminishes and martyrs herself. The message is, mothers, you are such wonderful and good people because you make yourselves smaller, because you deny your own needs, because you toil tirelessly in the shadows and no one ever thanks or notice you. This still makes you amazing. Shonda Rhimes says, yuck. What the hell kind of message is that? Would anyone praise a man for that?
Mm-hmm.
Those
Mm-hmm.
are not behaviors anyone would hope to instill in their daughters, right? Right? I'm not saying motherhood shouldn't be praised. Motherhood should be praised. Motherhood is wonderful. I'm doing it. I think it's great. There are all kinds of ways and reasons that mothers care and should be praised. But for cultivating a sense of invisibility, martyrdom, and tirelessly working unnoticed and unsung, those are not reasons. Praising women for standing in the shadows, wrong. And when we were talking about this subject, I thought about that. And for so many women, when we talk about that other piece of cake, or we talk about that extra glass of wine, or that extra drink, or whatever it is, or that piece of chocolate, it's because women are toiling for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I would never tell anybody to stop taking care of their kids, their husband, their
Yeah.
jobs, or what have you. However, at some point, as you said, you have to look in the mirror and say, I love myself.
Mm-hmm.
I am a priority in my
Yeah.
own life. I don't have to wait until Mother's Day for someone to say, you're doing a good job. I can
Mm-hmm.
do that every day by recognizing and saying yes to myself. What do you say? What are your thoughts, Tamika?
You know, that's really deep. I was actually taking notes, Kim, as you were talking. So, I don't have any children, but I think most women, we all are very maternal.
Mhm.
Um, and I will say I was very significant. I do have four younger siblings that I'd spent about 15 years of my life, really those childbearing years from like 25, you do the math, to about 40 years old, helping to rear them, taking them to school. We would go to church together. They would spend most weekends with me. So, yeah, I get it. I think even though I was more like a big sister, auntie, but still like a mama, disciplinarian when I had to be, I
Mhm.
think one of the key things is that we got to change like the narrative, right? Um, Again, going back to what society says, a lot of these notions are things from centuries years old, and those people who implemented these practices or, these nuances or what the platform should be, they're not even here anymore. And so I think that we should, obviously, I believe in having some form of tradition, but I think that we need to really evaluate what works best uh, for your home and for your household and for your lifestyle. Whether you're a mom of two, married, whether you have five kids, whatever that situation is, really being able to kind of develop like a healthy blueprint for your life. The other thing is too, raising children, that's 18 to 20 years of your life, right? That's a significant amount of time. And so really being intentional, you talked about the Mother's Day, but really being able to celebrate yourself every day. That's why it goes back to you, God, and the pillow,
Mhm.
because having those conversations with yourself and with God, it does fuel you. And then too, I think even with children, you got to know boundaries too. It's healthy boundaries, but hey, It's okay for kids to go to bed at 8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
I, I don't think I've seen one report where a child died because they went to bed at 8 o'clock. You know, send them to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Make them wait. I mean, set some boundaries. A kid gonna do what you let a kid do. I
Mm-hmm.
know that. Okay, I'm not just. I know. Like I said, I put in 15 years. Yes, and so we know that. Um, I think the other thing too, being really intentional about being your own woman. You know, you've heard this saying back in the day called like a man's man.
Mm-hmm.
Those were like the men from back in the day, like our grandfathers, you know, like the unsung heroes of the community who took care of their family. But you know what? They were like the model. They were the model. And so that's what they call like a man's man. Like, be a woman's woman, be your own woman. Still
Mm-hmm.
fulfill your job. But again, you got to be strategic. Listen, you going to bed at 8 o'clock, and from whatever 9 through this time, that's the time for you to still carve out your dreams. Because again, 18 to 20 years, it is a significant amount of time. I know we're in a pandemic too, but I think if people can afford help or whatever to support them, whether it's one day a week or whatever, work out, barter, you know, someone that you feel safe with so that you still have that time. I think you got to be a priority. Like, you've got to be a priority. And even if it's setting goals, like, okay, if you look at in terms of a year, it's 4 quarters in a year. Okay, the first quarter, this is what's going to get done. See, nothing gets done until you are very intentional about it. And even if you got to put a calendar, and if the kids help you with the calendar, they like, look, this is what's going down in first quarter. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
help you with this, but this is gonna be my time. Second quarter, this is what we're doing. Third quarter, and so then it helps them to be held accountable too, and so they can begin to say like, okay, how important it is when they see you fulfilling things that's important, and really when those things are being done, then you have a much better, you know, you're a much better mom to present to them as opposed to you running below the E. Your gas tank is below the E. So just looking at, and it's a personal um, roadmap for each person, but just looking at what can be done, and looking at it like it's not going to be going on forever. But even if you break it up every month, every quarter, what you're going to do and sharing that plan with the family, I think is a good start. Because kids, they understand even if they're 2 or 3. You write something down, put it on your refrigerator and keep showing it. Oh, Tuesday, that's mom. Don't you care? Mama doing this. Yes,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I have one more question because our time is going very quickly. So if you have a friend who is struggling to embrace herself, because
Mhm.
she feels like she has nothing but flaws, there's nothing good, what would you advise her? What would your advice be?
Oh, you know what? It's then that's a real temperature check. That's a real temperature check. Um, it's going back to when it's just you, God, and the pillow. That means you're going to have to be very intentional and set some time. It might be daily. It
Mm-hmm.
might be, it might be daily. Um, so you saying this person is struggling with themselves, may not feel confident.
Mm-hmm.
So that means you might have to quadruple up. You might need to stay off of social media,
Mm-hmm.
because social media, even though it's a good platform, I mentioned it earlier, it's easy for people to compare themselves to others. um, you know, one person could post something and get one like, and somebody else can post something that maybe it's not really as relevant, if you will, but because they're this person with
Yes.
these many followers and they get gazillion likes. I'm like, what did they say?
Right.
You know, but am I one feeling did I miss something? But
Mm-hmm.
feeling confident enough to know that you do have a voice and you do have something to say. And the fact that you said it and you was, you know, strong enough and brave enough to put it out there, continue to do it, because guess what? You're building traction and your voice, you know, like I said, you believe your voice more than anyone else's. So, like I said, it don't matter when you are your own woman, whether you got one like or a million likes, it's still relevant. The second thing is, I think, you might need to just sit there and look in front of the mirror. Go to, I don't want to endorse a store, but go to a store and purchase yourself a beautiful mirror, right? Purchase
Mm-hmm.
yourself a beautiful mirror. And you might need to go in your bathroom and look, put the timer on, and like you got to be cool, um, and just strip down. And you got to look and look and look and look. I mean, what's the saying? The teacher doesn't talk to the student takes. The teacher doesn't talk while the student is taking the test. No, the
Mm.
teacher
It's
doesn't.
silent. Yes, the
Yes,
teacher is silent. Yes.
yeah. So it's like you're looking at a mirror from within. So you got to keep doing it until you get it. You will know when you got it. You will know when you got it, and it's a walk. And then too, what are you doing to make yourself feel better? I mean, you got to be intentional, whether it's certain programs. Again, I keep going back to that. You cannot put everything into your system. You got to be intentional. So whether it's listening to some motivational things, maybe even asking people, you know, what do you think I'm good at? What do you think I'm strong at? Like your allies, if you will. I think that's foundation. I think too, having a vision for your life, that also helps too, knowing that wherever you're at now, you don't have to stay there, that there is a future in mind. So kind of looking at that too, seeing yourself before you get there. And what would that look like? What would you have on? You know, what would you eat? What would you, just everything, the couch that you sitting on, what type of furniture would it be? Is your husband sitting across from you? Is a child running across? Like really envisioning where you want to be and not negating where you're at, but what are the steps day by day that's going to get you there. I think is helpful. And pick up a book during this time here. We got to do it. If you don't want to pick up a book, then listen to a podcast. But you're gonna have to do something, because flipping through somebody else's timeline is not gonna get it. It's really not. Maybe journaling. It might be four or five things. Maybe you need to listen to some inspirational music. Maybe you need to go sit down by the water, take a drive. It's an accumulation of things I think that has to be done, over and over. If you need to go seek professional counseling, I think if you got it, you got the insurance or the budget, I think that you should do it. I think that you should add all the ammunition, every tool you got. You need to do so. You need to do it, because this is a real fight.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get punked out in the fight, then continue to do what you're doing. But if you want to win and walk out victorious, you know, then these are some of the things that you're going to have to do. Obviously, you can adjust for your own lifestyle, but um, you're going to have to be very strategic and very intentional. I'll leave you with this. You know, um, Last year, my husband and I, we were like hooked on this Game of Thrones. I know we were like a little late to the party, but one of the things I noticed about them, I always like the fighting scenes for some reason. And even on my Instagram, um, I talk about winning and winning the fight. The fight is fixed, right? And even when they would go into battle, even though they were trained and strong, these warriors or whatnot, and they had on their armor, one thing they would do, they would get in formation and they would hold their shields together, right, like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they were. It wasn't like this. It was like this. So when the arrows come, they bounce off the shield,
Mm-hmm.
so they don't get killed
Mm-hmm.
or seriously injured. So, I mean, just know that it is a real battle out here. None of this is happening by happenstance or coincidence. And so you can still have like a victorious life. It can still happen even in the middle of a pandemic. Um, Greatness can still manifest. They say it's during times of adversity where really it's been times of opportunity. Even when you look at the Great Depression, in the 20s and 30s, that's when people became multi-millionaires. And, when you have time to think. In this book that I was reading by John Maxwell, he kind of talked about one thing you have to do is cultivating. He says cultivate big picture thinking. We got to look beyond what's here, look beyond what's just here in Metro Detroit. I mean, when you look at how big the world is, right? And you just look at this one spot, this one time, but it's much bigger than that, And so knowing that, the Bible tells us that this too shall pass. But it can pass, but how you want it to pass? You want it to pass and you move on to the great thing, or you want it to pass and you and some more valleys? So do you want to have, more uphills, if you will, in life? And a lot of that has to do with sometimes stuff happens in life, but it's like how you respond to it and what are you going to do day to day, how you going to fight this battle. And I believe that I believe in more wins. Everybody like a heavyweight or fighter that got more wins, right?
Mhm.
Nobody really talk about the person with all the L's. So it's like, you want to walk with an L or walk with a W. I want to walk in with the plenty of W's.
Mhm.
Heavyweight, undefeated. You know, that's that's how you gotta be. Success leaves clues. I tell you one thing. I love boxing. I love boxing because I love the mindset. It's the hype. When you look at it in terms of a boxer, what's one thing? They talk mad junk. What they gonna do to you? They get in that physical condition. The
Mhm.
music that they listen to, the gang squad around them, the best of food, everything, their health. They sleep at a certain time, and they go in there. They laser focused. I'm going in here to knock you out. And it's like, okay, what are we going in to knock out? You gonna sit up here and let somebody just come through on a pandemic and make you afraid, not do this and not do that, sleep on your dreams, look at what everybody else is doing, while 5, 10, 15 years going by, and you're not going to get any of that back, or you're going to sit up here and just do it afraid, even if you are, do it,
Mhm.
do it,
Mhm.
do it. Go back through, okay, I did it, polish it up the next time and do it again, and you do it better. You get your sweet spot. You can start flying, start flying. I mean, most of us probably listening to your show, probably like 40 something years old. Hey, if not now, then when? That's one thing my husband and I said, like, no, the time is now. The
Mhm.
time is now. Is now, not tomorrow. The time is now.
That's right.
Now. Now.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Thank you, Tamika, for coming on and talking to us about saying yes to you. Tell us
Mhm.
how we can reach you. You said you're on
I'm on
Instagram.
Instagram, right?
Okay.
So I have a very unique spelling. My father gave it to me, Tamika for real. So Tamekia, the number four, and then Real. So yes, you can find me on Instagram, um, and I am looking to really be much more engaged. But I try to post at least a couple times a month. So I'm gonna do better. So yes, thank you.
Well, we know you're busy too, taking care
Yeah.
of
So
some big projects happening around the region. So we applaud you for
hey, that's the other thing. I could be busy posting, or I could be busy out here living and doing the work. As a woman of color in a very high level leadership capacity. So I'd rather be doing the work and getting that, under my arm versus flossing for a million likes. Even though
that.
it's cool to have the likes, I'm not knocking the likes or anything, but I would rather be out here genuinely doing the work and the whole iron sharpening iron and sharpening my mindset and just having the privilege. I'm gonna have to say in my career path, just being able to work with some of the best, the very best in the region. And with that capacity, if you are in meetings with people who are making beyond six figures, and
Mhm.
even if you're not saying too much, but you're in the virtual meeting with them, I have a book and I call it the business lingo. And when I hear certain things, I write it down. Like, wow,
Mhm.
where else would I get an opportunity to see the head of this corporation say that? Whether this meeting is an hour or so, and just taking that down and how I can incorporate that. That's how we become better. I love being around people who are smarter than me, who
Absolutely.
more than I love it. I love it.
Absolutely. Well, you gave us some great things to remember. I just want to remind people, let's lay off of social media. Social media is great, but manage it. Don't let it manage you. Focus on the things that make you happy. Focus on your goals. Keep your focus and your faith on God, and you will never go wrong. Thank you so much, Tamekia, for being on the show. We hope that you will join us again because I'm sure as 2021 goes on, we will continue to have this conversation about saying yes to you.
Yes, say yes. Thank you, Kim, for having me. It's been a delight. I love your platform. I love what you're doing. So thank you. I consider you a friend. I love you, and thank you again. I will come back anytime you have me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamekia. I so appreciate you. And thank you guys for tuning in to the Kim B. Davis Show. I hope that you'll tune in for our next episode. And as always, remember, be magnificent.